Hey there. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to, for this activity, really analyzing both your own demographics and psychographics and the types of audiences that you are. And then you're going to be expanding on it using this little picture up above. It says race, education, sexuality, all these different ideas, right? And so the goal of this is to come up with 10 different psychographics or demographics that you fall into and then post them below. And then while you're scrolling through it, you can actually see like who is the audience of this classroom, right? Who are the people in this classroom? You might not really understand the depth of intersectionality and the depth of identities that we have in this classroom, right? Think about just how much diversity and different types of people are in Long Beach, right? That's an insane amount of people. I have people from rich areas. I have people who have like witnessed murder. Like, I had a student who talked about like witnessing a murder in their in our class, like as part of their speech one time. Like it is a wild amount of experiences and identities that can happen in a classroom. And so share what you want to share, right? You don't have to share anything that you don't want to share, right? If you're uncomfortable sharing your sexuality, right? I can understand. If you're uncomfortable sharing your gender or ethnicity, whatever it is, right? I can understand that, right? Um, but for example, I would mention that I'm white. I would mention that I have a master's degree. I would mention that I'm a teacher because a teacher is a part of your job, right? If you worked customer service, if you serve tables like I did, I still identify like I have server identity inside me, right? Um, ability, right? I am able-bodied, right? I understand. If someone has dyslexia, I can understand how that affects their life. I had a close friend who was wheelchair-bound, right? And so they understood that that was part of their identity in being disabled. I'm 27, right? We know there's a difference between talking to a young professor like me. I feel like I'm generally young for a professor, as opposed to like some of my coworkers who are literal on the older spectrum, more like Gen X and maybe even baby boomers, right? Uh, Gender, I'm a man, right? Ethnicity, I'm particularly just white, which is also my race. I was raised in a conservative environment, so both my parents are heavily conservative, and so Christian, and so if you came from a very conservative Christian household, you know some of the things that I carry with me. That doesn't necessarily mean that's my political ideology. I don't like to disclose my political ideology just because I think it would influence the class if you knew politically what I felt, and politics are so polarizing nowadays, so I don't share that. But I know I come from conservative parents. Um, Culture wise, I feel like I was raised kind of Christian, but not Christian. So like I don't pray, I don't have a cross on me, but I'm afraid of God for some reason. I don't know if anyone relates to that. I speak English. Estoy estudiando español para mi novia y su mamá. So I do speak a little Spanish, un poquito. Entiendo muchas palabras, pero no habla muy bien. No hablo muy bien. Yeah, sorry. I know I get grammar confused. I can understand sentences. Oftentimes I can understand it, but I don't. Yeah. Uh, anyway, if you didn't speak Spanish, I'm sorry for that. I can't imagine what the captions are going to pick up as that when I put it in English, and they're like, "You spoke Spanish there for a second. That's weird." Class, I'm probably lower middle. I would feel like I was raised middle, and I feel like I'm lower middle now. I have a 1-bedroom apartment with my girlfriend. We haven't bought a house yet. I would say middle when I buy a house or I get a full-time job. I'm only a part-time professor. I mean, even adjunct professors have their own culture. Think about other cultures that you could mention or talk about, right? So, for example, my girlfriend knits and crochets. Like the crafting and like going to Michael's and going to Joann's Fabrics. Like that's its own culture. It has its own terminology. Think about different other things. Like I have I have a very close friend that plays competitive Yu-Gi-Oh cards. That's its own culture, right? If you play video games, there's a difference between people who play Animal Crossing, and there's a difference between people who play Fortnite, like one of my close friends does. Way too much and spends way too much money on it. And then I have had friends who play like Call of Duty Warzone, right? Those are different people, right? There's little like indie gamers who have their own culture. And I dated a girl once, and her best friend was a furry, and he took me to like a furry convention once. Just like he was like, "Hey, you want to come? Like, we have free tickets for you and your significant other." And I was like, "Absolutely! Like, I am going to that, and I'm just gonna." that is, if you want to people watch, go to a furry convention. It is the most wild thing in the world, and not even from a judgment perspective. Like, I don't care. I personally, I don't care if you dress up like, wear what you want. But I was just so fascinated by the culture of it. Right? What a religion are you? Right? We have a lot of Buddhists in Long Beach, right? Up in Hacienda Heights, there's actually like the largest Buddhist temple in the Western Hemisphere, the Zhailai Temple. I used to live there. I used to live near there. I used to live a few blocks away, and so I've been a few times. Um, and so just think about like what other cultures you could be a part of, right? Um, okay, I feel like that's enough.